Chev-Dev, along with
talk about it amongst America,
Pastor Archie.
but we also want to talk about it amongst ourselves because we are the model.
And we discuss topics and how they get to a certain tipping point.
So if we do well,
KCPZ, Praise 95.3.
then things tip toward the godly way. If we don't do well, things tip towards a satanic way.
And so our objective is to look at where we're at a tipping point, some issues and how we can move there.
You're tuned into another episode of The Tipping Point with Chev-Dev and Pastor Archie. How's it going this morning, Pastor?
Going real well. Glad to be here. Interesting week we've had.
Interesting week. Wow. So today we're gonna, I guess, is this gonna be an official recap?
Well, yeah. Let's talk about the week and talk about things that we couldn't talk about leading up to the election. As we know, we're not for-profit, so therefore we're careful not to endorse or try to persuade people using this medium.
Yes, we can't endorse or persuade on this platform, and from this platform, we weren't going to get on and say we didn't like Trump, but naturally, from this area and this culture, we can talk about Trump in a negative way that can be persuasive. So we just didn't talk about the election as a whole, but people have been elected. There's no more endorsing or de-dorsing, if that's such a word. Mm-hmm. So now we can talk about it.
Okay, and then also I must say that I don't want to carry the assumption that everybody dislikes Trump.
Yeah.
Because some of our listeners may be very, they may be Trumpettes or Trumpers.
Yeah.
And so therefore I don't want to just kind of make that assumption. But we have a new president-elect. And I think what we have to talk about is the aftermath, but we can give some summary of some of the thinking leading up to, and then some of the reaction. I mean, we're still in reaction mode across the country, and I find it pretty interesting.
Yes. So, I mean, it's just it was very entertaining.
The whole campaign
from the day.
Mm-hmm.
I would say he made it entertaining from the day that he announced that he was running for the highest office in the land. Nobody took him serious.
Well, I mean, I would not say nobody. Here's the deal, and I've said this on a number of occasions. Now I had to be very careful because unless we're going to make a clear endorsement, then ministers have to be very careful. And then, also some churches have been under certain degrees of scrutiny, and their not-for-profit status been challenged because they have been very vocal. Although it seems like in this case, when you look at most of the things that were taking place, a lot of churches, a lot of ministers came and stated their opinions and then went forward. I just like to be consistent with the law. But for me, and I've said this often to some of my friends, both white and blacks, both Trump supporters and Hillary supporters. Actually, I didn't, a lot of people were not either, but were leaning to default. I have to default to this one. And some people defaulted to Trump based on a couple of things, and some people defaulted to Secretary Clinton based on a couple of things. But I would probably say that I'm not a prophet per se, but I predicted the outcome.
You predicted that Trump would win?
Yes.
Why?
Well, there's a number of things in my mind. First of all, I knew that the marketing strategy, as a behavioral scientist, marketing strategies. And marketing strategies are designed to label a person so that subconscious influence drives them. If you look at the way the president-elect marketed, he used commercial marketing strategies to give subconscious responses to most people. So what that does is it doesn't create people voting for him. it creates people not voting for the other person.
Which means he will.
People will, and so what he did was he labeled each of his opponents. Lion, Ted Cruz, and he labeled Hillary Crooked Hillary. So when a lot of things came out, like you can't have an assumed Russian influence and then use it as normal media. You can't have WikiLeaks, who is breaking the federal and most state laws, and then use it as evidence against the person, and then see it as value. And then some of that stuff was just it was just conversation that people have on emails. It wasn't even bad stuff, but because he labeled her Crooked Hillary, then no matter what.
You know what I think? My summary of the whole thing.
No, that's just one point now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So we get summary. The summary of that.
Yeah.
The marketing. I don't know if you want to pick that piece.
Well, I think the marketing part, it was an advantage to him, but was not the sole reason for the win.
Right, which I get that. Okay.
And
so I have other reasons, but the marketing strategy was to keep her from gaining undecideds. And so
I could agree.
Yeah.
I could
agree. And to create apathy amongst people who support it. I mean, people who support it spend so much time saying, well, because of this WikiLeaks, if you really look at the WikiLeaks stuff, none of it was leaking damaging information. It was just like if you really looked at any pastoral staff or any business team or anybody else and you got all their private emails, they're going to say some things that you could throw out there that is part of the brainstorming process. And so, it's that. I think, and then I think, I'll give you an example. Had the other side said, we're going to label him Lion Trump, then if they would have named him Lion Trump, then what would have happened is every time he said something, people would have fact checked it. And if you fact checked it, I think the fact checker said that 92% of what he said was untrue. So then that would have became the thing that chased him. But since you name her crooked, then everything you say, everybody measured it against crookedness.
So I think, I agree. I also think, here's the thing. I think in part with the marketing.
Okay, well let me give you my number two before you.
Oh, okay. So you want to give? Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna give each one, and then we can comment on each one. Okay. So the marketing strategy was one.
Yeah.
The second one was, I think, was in the fact that when you look at our history, I can't recall, and I would have to check to be sure, whether we've ever had 12 years of the same party. We typically will go 8 years, if not 4 years, of one party. And according to how radically right or left that party is, we usually swing back the other way. And so in this particular case, we've swung very heavily to the left. And we've endorsed some policies that are very hard to swallow and are culturally, and when I say culture, I mean American culture, culturally challenging to our history. How we view marriage, how we view gender, how we view all those different kinds of things. We've kind of, in many senses, gone so political that we're challenging science now with politics. And whether good or bad, I think those who have a biblical position are already going to be frustrated with it swinging that way. So to say, let's swing it that way 4 more years is going to fundamentally kind of shake up what the historical pattern is. So you're predicting, you're always predicting based on history, and basically the pendulum now has swung so far left that it got to start swinging right. So history, no matter who were the candidates, history. Now remember, if you take candidates out and just look at history, then history would have determined.
I think
it's going to swing back the other way.
I think there was a chronological order of absent-minded situations that had to happen in order for Trump to be elected. They just so happened to happen, but there was one thing that could have happened that the pendulum wouldn't have swung that way.
Well, I think that.
In my opinion.
Well, I just think that history worked against, worked for one way. You know, if you're the person coming up after 4 years and you don't have an income, then, you know, if you're the opposite party, then your chances are greater. I mean, look at Missouri, the Missouri governor. I mean, you had a governor, outgoing governor, who's Democratic, and now we have a incoming Republican governor.
Well, I think the governor and everybody, all the Republicans that got that won in this state, I'm going to speak of, maybe in every state, really just won. I'm going to almost say by default because of who the presidential candidate was. And this is the thing. But this is the reason I say that.
Okay.
If there wasn't a lot of people that showed up to vote for elect Trump, then you wouldn't have had those people voting for the Republicans on the ticket.
I hear you. I just think in the down ballots, you carry your constituent. I think that, and here's the reason why I would disagree with that generally, is because I don't have any facts. I would disagree generally because typically what you do is the percentage of people who, like a large percentage, like you might not have 100% of the people in this precinct to come in and vote. You might have dropped down to 30%. But even if you had 30%, the percentages in that 30 still seem to remain the same.
I got you. Okay, so you got the marketing, you got the history. Is there any more pieces to your puzzle?
Yeah, in this particular piece, I think you had white evangelicals who are, they will default, whether good or bad, to things that are most relevant to them, rather than things that are most relevant to us being the Christian community. And so when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, that is a scale that really determines our natural reaction to how we prioritize our own individual needs. And the first one is physical safety, or physical health, or whatever the case matters. And so if I find out I have cancer, all the other things change. You know, I mean, but the first thing is if I find that I'm physical healthy, I can be okay. Then I go to safety. Safety being the next one. Then you just climb all the way up. Well, the top of the 5 steps is self-actualization. In self-actualization, then it's my enlightened self-interest. I mean, when I look at what things are good and bad in general, even if they don't affect me. So, when you have African-American evangelicals or minority evangelicals vote, their first things are going to be my physical safety. So, you've convinced me that healthcare is healthy, and that most of the people who are not like me have it. And so, now I have it, and so the threat of repealing it means that you're going to take it away from me, and my sicknesses and all that kind of stuff, you know. Even if you say we're going to repeal it and reinstate something new, you haven't offered anything new. So I say don't throw nothing away until you get, you know, until you get it redone. So, but that threat, I'm going to do this right away, I'm going to take your insurance away. Then that was, you know, I mean, that for us it was like, whoa, wait a minute now. And then the second thing is my safety. You said we're going to go to stop and frisk. I mean, you know, and you say, well, we're going to rule out the bad cops, but every time you do that, we have 3 or 4 funerals that could be my grandkids and not your grandkids. So while I'm thinking about all those things in the Maslow chart that apply to me as a believer, and I think about their injustice and their unbiblical position, the white evangelical, most of them don't have to think about that. So the bottom was not your problem. You always had healthcare, you got a career, you got a job, you got this. Second one, your safety is not the issue. Nobody's stopping and frisking you. I mean, we know that 87% or 92% were black, African Americans, only 12% convicted. That means people lost jobs by spending time in jail and everything else, and they weren't convicted. And then you go down to, you know, I need to belong, I need to be connected. I mean, you go all the way up to that self-actualization. And when you get to self-actualization, I am concerned about whether or not traditional marriage is preserved, and I'm concerned about whether or not abortions take place. But that is not. I would not kill my kids in order to fight that policy, and that's really what white evangelicals are asking minority evangelicals to do if they don't pay attention to our issue. And what we're asking them to do is, in your guilt of how many abortions take place, we're asking you to sacrifice that guilt in order to save our lower elements of the Maslow chart. And so therefore, so what you have is a divided kingdom. You have all these issues that are biblical. However, the priority of those biblical issues are based on what affects who the most. And so white evangelicals are going to say Trump was bad, his character was bad, he did all these things that are against us and everything else. And so they won't publicly say, I'm going to endorse him, because then you can't preach anymore about biblical living. And so therefore they'll say, I think I'm going to go with a third party candidate, or they'll say all those things, but then they'll quietly go in the booth. And then obviously evangelicals turned out really great. In fact, Ralph Reed, who is, some people say a radical, but he is a very known evangelical, said this on the night. He said evangelicals turned out in droves, and then he said Trump is now the new face and voice of the evangelical movement in Kansas City, in the United States, which.
Bad thing.
Yeah, you got 3 divorces. You cheated all the time. You got all these things that have taken place, and it's like, wow, that's what we now preach.
Well, I think that's why he has Mike Pence.
Well, I think that
so he can be the actual face, because Mike Pence is supposed to be real heavy in his faith, evangelical Christian.
I like Mike Pence. I mean,
seems a lot more
he's
calmer.
Yeah, he's civil. I mean, he's smart. He's civil. He's all this thing. I mean, he's a good choice, but. If I'm a bad guy and pick a good partner, like my wife is good but I'm bad, then does that justify your vote for me? I mean,
well, here's the thing. Are you done?
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
I want to talk about that whole what my needs are versus what their needs are. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Well, I think that you're right. Mm-hmm. I think that. And I was having a conversation last night with Roy, and talking about our first allegiance should be the fact of our faith, of being a Christian, and we shouldn't have people voting for what's going to affect them most, especially when it comes. I think, and this is going to be one of mine. I think that Donald Trump appealed to, of course, people like him, which some could say he's a bigot, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And we believe that there are a lot of bigots within the kingdom. So that person that's a bigot within the kingdom, is he going to vote for the kingdom, or is he going to vote for his bigotry? Mm-hmm. And I believe there was a lot of bigotry that was voted.
And so now, I'm going to play the advocate. I'm going to do your part this time. I would say, I agree with you, by the way. I also agree that the bigotry, bigotry is not a reason why Trump got elected as much as it is a reason why we're divided. Because I think that we have bigotry also.
I would agree to the latter half of what you said, but I think the bigotry is what got Trump elected. And I say that because Trump appealed to the part of the country. They said the vote that came in for Trump that really made it even possible for him to was uneducated, uneducated white man. Basically rural. So you talk about, the dumb hicks. You know what I'm saying?
And I push back on the media's use of that term. I don't think they were uneducated. I think they call them uneducated because they don't want to they don't want to cling to their opinionation.
And which is?
Their opinionation is slavery was probably a pretty good idea, and we have lost our country because we've gotten rid of policies like a border policy that used to guarantee that whites would remain the majority in the country. I mean, that was the border policy at first. That's what we got rid of. We have heard the rhetoric about, we've lost our country, and black folks ain't running around saying that, and Mexicans ain't
That's
running
what
around
I'm
saying
saying.
that. I'm saying, but so I don't think that they're uneducated in the sense. I push back. I think the media don't want to say that they have an opinion that is contrary to unity.
I think the media says uneducated because when you're talking about the demographics of a people and how they want to break down the demographics, you have to categorize them as something. Hillary Clinton went after the educated woman. So
here's what I would say.
You see what I'm saying?
Hillary Clinton went after the liberal woman.
Okay, but who cares? But the educated woman.
So I think those are media terms. Those are media terms. But here's what I say. I would say this. I would replace the word uneducated with words that really helped identify that you were dealing with a bigoted.
That's what I'm saying. So when it's a stereotype. No. It's a stereotype. It's a stereotype. For one, you got your slogan is "Make America Great Again."
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people took that slogan and said, "What you mean back to like the slavery days, like the Jim Crow days?"
Like you know what I'm saying?
And then you go after the educate. He's talking about all those rural bigots that's in the country. Because here's what really surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
When we was looking at all these rallies after the election.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about thousands and thousands of rallies with the majority of white people.
Right.
The white educated voter.
And see,
And I'm like, where are all these people who voted for Trump? They went back to their rural hick towns and continue to be who they are.
Well, and to me, I think with the better categories, here's the assumption that educated people are much more liberal.
Yeah.
I think that's a wrong assumption. I think that educated people will always think gay marriage, abortion, all those things that Hillary promotes. I think the liberal media labels them educated to make people call the guys in the country dumb hicks. But as one who, when I worked with education process and spent a lot of time in the countries, I would say that there are some people who, as I said, they think slavery was a good idea for the country. We should have figured out a way to do it. And what they do is they've replaced slavery with privatized prisons.
Yeah.
And that's why they're all in the country. But those guys are smart, insightful, and fully understand. So calling them uneducated is to me.
I just think you have to me, my opinion, you got to read between the lines. If Donald Trump says, I've ran this race for those who have been forgotten about or left out,
right.
or don't want to be a part of society. He's talking about the guys in the white hats that's tucked away in the woods somewhere.
Right, I get that. I get that part of it. That's not what I'm arguing against. What I'm arguing against is labeling them uneducated by the media. Because I think if you label them uneducated, we put them in a category. It's kind of like if you say you got armed people, and they're fully armed. They just don't have the same gun you got. Then you treat them differently because you perceive them as, what you're doing is you're downplaying their intellect. And I think all along the way, we was talking about he's reaching the white, educated person, all this kind of stuff. I'm thinking, no, those guys are very educated. And they're educated a lot of times. They might not went to your school. Mm-hmm. They might have homeschooled their kids. Mm-hmm. But they're very educated. They have a strategy, they have a thought. They're campaigning among each other. And they're saying, we'll go out and vote, but be quiet, don't say nothing because,
the media is talking politically. I mean, if you don't have a college degree, then they're going to label you uneducated.
Then how come they didn't talk about uneducated blacks?
Because they're talking about what pushed him over the top.
But they wasn't talking when they talked about.
I'm sure when they talked about Obama, they was like uneducated blacks.
They didn't. They called us the black vote. That's it. And so they talk about us as the black vote, the black vote, the black vote. To divide whites between educated and uneducated.
It does what?
Well, what it does is it leaves a blind spot in consider. It makes an excuse for them. Like, for example, the fact that
an excuse you elected Trump.
Right, I think that they are intellectually moving towards what's important for them. Just like we would have, on this side as blacks, if we would have unified, we would have intellectually moved toward what was important to us. And really, to tell you the truth, if both of us did that, then neither one of the candidates would have been up there.
Exactly.
But I would say this, though. I think that the labeling, I just...
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think that they're educated, they were strategic, and they thought they what they wanted, and they wanted to
I don't think that.
Oh, yeah.
I think it doesn't take education to say this guy wants to bring back racism, and I'm a bigot. Let's go with him. That doesn't take a lot of thought. This is what I'm talking about.
Always underestimating. I think it does take a lot of thought to say. I don't think
that's my goal.
Because here's the deal: most of the folks who I met across mid-Missouri, who thought slavery was a good idea, hate immigration, really believe we need to be segregated and everybody can be successful. They believe we can have Black Wall Street and they have White Wall Street, and they believe that stuff. They're smart, intelligent, insightful, and strategic. They're not dumb heaps that just came up.
Yeah,
they've thought out well what they want.
Group of people.
No. This is. I mean, I had all of the.
But this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Back in 89, 91, 90, whatever, Trump said, I would run as a Republican because Republicans are the dumbest group of people. Exactly. What he means is, let me act like them and think like them in order to give their vote. Go ahead, knock them out, punch them in the face, and incite all these riots and hates, and we're going to build a wall to keep those Mexicans out, and we're going to repeal Obamacare, and all this and all that. And then he gets elected, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth is, basically, I just used y'all for y'all vote, but I'm not actually going to build a wall. I was just talking about theoretically or, using it as an analogy. And they're like, I thought you were going to build a wall. That's because you're dumb, and I just said it to get your vote.
No, and here's the deal. I would say this. When you go back and talk to them now, some of the interviews that they've done now, they said, did you really think he was going to build a wall? And what they say is, no, we didn't think he was going to build a wall. But here's what build a wall means.
Yeah, I know what it means.
Well, let me, just to be sure we're on the same page. Build a wall means, go back to, I think it was, and I might have my year wrong, 1964, when the borders and crossing of the borders and who was allowed in, when they were open and shut, was based on a white majority voice in the country. And so when he says build the wall and go back to make it great again, that's what they hear.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to tell you, no, I disagree. Because he's saying I'm going to build a wall to keep all the Mexicans out.
No, I'm saying I'm going to take immigration back to the way.
But he didn't say that. No.
In one of his speeches, he said.
In one of his speeches about the whole year.
And he mentioned the year that it was like that.
So that makes him a genius and intellectual. I'm just going to paint you a picture. I just want to paint you a picture of the Make America Great that I want.
I bet you if you go through and you start talking to them folks, I'm telling you,
they're not going to cut that out until it's time for a race war. That's how they don't talk to them.
You go back and you see the interviews. I spent a lot of time with them. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make their schools better.
But this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there are not people who understood that. I'm saying there's a majority of people who didn't understand.
That's what I disagree with.
All right.
I think the majority of the people knew exactly.
The same people, look. The same people that I'm talking about was the people when Obama got elected that was calling into the media talking about, oh my God, we got a black Muslim running the country. They're gonna have all these Muslims up in the White House. Those are the people I'm talking about. What's the Farrakhan? He's gonna be barbecuing with Farrakhan at the White House. It's a group of those out there that's like, President Trump's gonna build a wall, kick the Mexicans out, and they're thinking about it literally.
I would say that we might have to just
agree to disagree.
Well, I don't ever agree to disagree.
Okay,
we might have
you have to have your thought, and I'm gonna have my thought.
Yeah, I just think we have to weigh on the evidence. I think that we have to figure out a way to explore this and try to figure out what the evidence is. But I will say, calling a group of people who are voters, labeling them uneducated, puts it means they're really not bigoted. They're really not like that. They just didn't know. Like they had interviewed people come in. One of the senators came in and said, "Well, I don't think that anybody would vote. Any of these people who voted for Trump voted for him with the idea that it would harm anybody else, because they were just, and he uses words, uneducated white people who were the primary people." No, it wasn't. It was evangelicals, people who read the Bible, who were intellectual.
I think there are
who understood what they wanted,
who knew exactly what he was talking about.
And you have a few radicals. I think the majority of the people are not educated. They might have a college degree. They might even have a high school degree, but what I've seen is, I've sat in the homes and I've watched these rural folks who I was really trusting God fully to even be in their community, and their kids do science just as good as the kids who graduated from high school, and they return home.
I agree.
They understand history with their bias, and they fully understand all the policies.
But all I'm saying is there are some people that don't understand.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
And there's some blacks that fight in the street, but you wouldn't label us all.
I understand. But they're saying the group that pushed him over the top is the group that I'm talking about. They didn't say everybody was uneducated. They're saying the ones who actually came out that supported him based on their belief system of bigotry and slavery and violence against everybody not white. All them people, there was a group of them that came out and pushed him over the top. But this is what
I hear what you're saying, and I hear the media's analysis. The media's just wrong altogether. But I hear the analysis, but I still don't, I would not label them uneducated white people. I would label them people who decided that it was better to have segregation than integration.
Okay, and you're going to have that opinion, I'm going to have this opinion. I want to say this. I would say, real quick, just to backpedal, the media was wrong. Someone could say that the media was wrong, or someone could say the media plan failed. And what I mean by that is, as you know, media transforms people's thinking. You know what I'm saying? I don't think the majority of people or people in high places didn't want Trump elected. So I think the media was feeding off of that and telling everybody how much he wasn't going to be elected. But the plan backfired and he was. So it makes him look wrong, but in actuality, their plan just failed to effectively brainwash the public into their outcome, which is don't elect Trump. So we're going to say he's not going to be elected. He's not going to be elected. He's not going to be elected, and try to brainwash people, and it just backfired.
Well, I mean, I don't. Your conspiracy approach gives people so much intellectual credit. I don't think that the media is that smart. Here's what I think that took place at the media. I think that they used polls to make decisions, and they trusted the pollster because that's kind of the white man's way of communication. Okay. And so those statistics came in, but you know why? Because they didn't anticipate. They didn't anticipate that most of the white evangelicals were going to lie. You got to listen to what
I'm with you there. I'm not disagreeing.
What Ralph Gruss said, and I know he don't represent all evangelicals, but he clearly said the evangelical vote turned out more, white evangelical vote turned out more in this election than they did in Romney and in Bush.
I agree.
Now, so if you're talking about a group that will push them over.
Yeah. And that's sad because they're running off their belief system of bigotry and making America great again than the kingdom.
Well, I would, I would do it that way. Here's what I would do is I would go back to my Maslow issue. I would say they would, it's like you do certain things at all costs. Would I protect my house at all costs? And you say, well, yeah, I would. then that means I would put a machine gun in the front to automatically detect movement, motion detector, and anybody comes up there is going to shoot. Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. Well, I think that when you start talking about issues like abortion and all that kind of stuff, Hillary believes abortion should be allowed up until the baby's born. So you could be in labor and cut the baby out and kill it to her. And so that's so offensive to some people that if you are a one issue person, Christian, then that's kind of where you are. But the imbalance is that a lot of our evangelical whites don't pay attention to the bottom part of the Maslow. So you would allow, you say nothing when black people get killed in the middle of the street, but you say something when babies are being killed. And so either a life is a life or not. And so so we got to put the same value on all lives and come to the table and have discussions about what the unity look like. But all of that still represents a divided kingdom. And I don't think it's just divided because white evangelicals voted for Trump. I think it's also divided because black evangelicals were not going to vote Republican even if it would have been a decent candidate.
I got you, and that may be bigotry on us, or not. But I think overall, and that's just one part of it for me. Another part, which a lot of people don't understand, and as much as I don't think that Trump is fit to run the United States, I have to say, I think he's a brilliant dude, and this proves it. And I say that because if you look at the situation, which was really, it was really bizarre to me. When I seen that they started pulling endorsements. I mean, you're talking about Macy's, you're talking about other big companies start pulling endorsements. That's not good for them. When you got Bushes and Cheneys not endorsing, I mean, you got major name Republicans not endorsing him. Up until 3 or 4 months of the election, he was doing this thing all on his own. Okay, so he was doing this with no help. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he had a couple in the back, but the major key players in this political arena for the last 10 years, they weren't there. So I'm like, there's no way he's going to win based on that. Not because he's Trump, but based on you don't have the support. Not to mention, you're offending everybody. Anytime Fox News goes against you, I'm like, it's a done deal for you. You know what I'm saying? If Fox ain't for you, you a done deal as a Republican. And they hated him. I'm like, there's no way. But Donald Trump understood something that a lot of people didn't understand. And I think you touched on it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You talk about human behavior. And through all this, everybody laughed, oh, he's just, the Apprentice star. No, he's not just the producer of Apprentice. He is a reality television producer that had, 7 seasons on a major network? 8 seasons? He understands the power of negative press. He understands the power of drama. And he used that for people's, and basically using behavioral science to gain those people, whoever they were, that Christian, evangelical Christian, or the Hicks that didn't show up, and he understood the power of media.
Now, I would say,
and that's genius.
Pieces of that I would agree to. First, I think understanding animalistic instinct, which is the core element of humanity, I think I would not call it genius. I think it's great marketing and you use it for your purpose. Genius is changing that behavior so that it becomes biblical.
If that was his
I'm just talking about the label. And and I don't think he knows how to because he hasn't done his own. So get my book Transform Your Life and you get a feel of what I'm talking about. But if you go back to what you were saying at first, I think what he did was he got a core of unmovables. And so if you get a core of unmovables, then that's kind of what Martin Luther King did, and that's what Malcolm X did. I mean, you got a core of unmovables, then who you offend is not as much an issue anymore. Because, when you step out, if you step out and say, I'm going to start this station, and then you have a core of people who stand behind you and say, no matter what, you know, we're going to be here, and all we need to do is have some insight. Now, look at the people who were, like you talking about Fox News, hated him, but the chief executive of Fox News were partners with him all along the way.
I would agree.
Before that. So therefore, you know, Fox News, you know, that might lean a little bit to the conspiracy theory. You also had guys from the alt-right, which were the radicals, telling these extreme bigots, look, this is your last chance. You know, the next election, these Mexicans, these blacks, all these kind of folks are going to have such a wide voice that we'll never get back to the time when we control the borders anymore. And so therefore we will no longer, and so he threatened their majority voice. And so all this is happening on alt-right radio, right? So this guy became the campaign CEO, right? Now, but he's a very, very, very close friend of Trump all along the way. So I think that guy was his kitchen table person, you know, all along the way. And so you had, and I can go down the line, you had a lot of other stuff. And what he did was anybody who was better than the people he had in his camp, he purchased them. Like, you know, he purchased the top pollster in the United States who became his director.
And that adds to my theory of all these pieces put together. It takes more than just smarts to do. It takes more than just money to do. You have to be very strategic to cover all the bases that he did. Because he also had some black pastors and black preachers and cats talking about the alphas and all this.
Yeah, but it's all happening there. I mean,
but it accomplishes goal. It accomplishes goal because you got the black vote.
The guy really wasn't an alpha.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how to strategic. That was kind of one of the sad parts of his black voice.
Yeah,
but I would probably say this. I think first of all, I think he never was really talking to the black people. He was talking to the white people to help them understand that we needed to have a covert face.
We need black people. So all you bigots that don't want them, we need them, basically.
No, he wasn't saying that. He said we need to have a covert face. We need to tell people that we like them. You know, and we really don't like them. We like them, you know, with mass incarceration. I mean, you know, we like them with slavery, but we don't just like them.
Yeah.
So now, let me say this, just to get the record clear. I'm not saying, nor have I said along the way, that Donald Trump is a racist or a bigot or any of those kind of things. What I'm saying is that there is an ideology that is attractive to him and his people. Now, how you label that is up to you.
But you know what? It's just so bizarre to me. All the stuff that feeds into that ideology and that belief system, and this is why I think it's kind of genius and it's extra smart. And I think he used that to gain some people. I think that most of the stuff that he ran on in just the first 3-4 interviews, his whole tone has changed. And his tone has changed, but he's not going to do certain things that he said.
Like, you know, I mean,
I know it's playing politics, but playing politics is promising and not delivering. He's going to deliver on some things he said he wasn't even going to deliver on.
Well, I think, first I would say this. First of all, no matter what, people talk about repeal Obamacare. To repeal and replace. Repeal and replace is a term. It's a, like what you're going to do if you repeal and replace is you're going to make adjustments. So Obamacare is not going away. You can make adjustments. He was going to make adjustments. Yeah, he was going to make adjustments too. She just did. Now, if you're going to repeal, then that means you take it away from everybody who has it now. And that would be so disruptive to the health of the country that I think, you know, so, you know, there's no way you can believe that it's going to do that, but they can call it that. But you're probably going to do the same thing Hillary would have did. You're going to deal with the pricing, you're going to deal with a number of things, and so you'll make some adjustments in it. It'll still be Obamacare, but just like No Child Left Behind. I mean, we didn't repeal No Child Left Behind. We made a bunch of adjustments so that it would more effectively achieve its objective. And that's the same thing you do with any new policy that comes out. I do think that the genius that you use, the term genius that you use in labeling, that I don't agree with. I think that, let's say Robert Lynch, the guy who who put together a strategy that would keep black people in slavery for years and years and years after slavery had ended. I've heard him referred to as a genius. But to run a prison, I don't have to be a genius.
That's understandable.
You know, to turn a prisoner into a quality citizen, that means that I've had to erase all that's been done to him or her that drove them in bad directions. That is where genius lies. And I think that's why God assigned it to us and did not assign it to a Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or anybody else. I think he assigned it to us, and he says, if we don't do it without the light, the salt loses the savor, if we stop doing it, then it says, where will it recede? Where can it be replenished? And so what he's saying is, there's nothing in earth, political or any other way, that can replenish what can be brought into society by a strong biblical position. And so Satan's job is to take the biblical positions and twist them so that we won't accept it. He wants to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, I think that, the solution has to get back. And we'll be talking about this for weeks, I'm sure. So we're close to finish. But I do want to spend a moment on the reaction. Because my time is running out.
Yeah. You tuned into the Tipping Point, Chev-Dev Pastor Archie, talking about a subject that we so long to talk about.
We were kind of trapped by FCC laws.
Yeah.
But I think that there's two things I think. And when I see the protesters out there, I think protest has become
the norm.
a common reality in our culture in America.
That's all we know.
But I think it demonstrates this degree of reactionary. And there's two things I think about why protests have become normalized. Number one, because we have the first generation of inner city people who have abandoned the church. And the venting normally took place, like when anything like this happened, everybody go to church, and that's when you have all your discussions, that's when you have people come down and have conversations, that's when all this stuff takes place. What we have done is we've abandoned the church, and so we've abandoned the church with the trust that the political society and the individualization was going to get us so far. And in reality, the Bible says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. It is a vehicle through which, if you look in the Old Testament, he says, this is kind of, in this house is where the prayers are answered. If you look at when he delivered Egypt, he says, go to a mountain and make a place where you can worship me. If you look in the end of Revelation, he says, I put together a new heaven and new earth and brought it down because my objective is to dwell among you. So we see that God has a great passion to work in that way. And what we see is when people don't work in that way, then we reap the benefits of our neglect. And often, if we're lucky, it leads us back to that way. So I think that's the first thing, is that this protesting is not near as effective as rallying, discussing our biblical role and responsibility, how it affects society, and then strategically putting things into place. Second thing I would say is that if you didn't vote, go home.
I agree.
Yeah, a lot of those folks couldn't vote because they were felons, and I'm not talking about that group. I'm talking about you had a right, and you had a voice, and your voice was in the polls, and you stayed away.
And now you're angry, I'm just not going to vote then.
And people say stuff like, they said, I hear people say stuff like, well, I just never thought this would happen. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why did you not?
They were going to million people like you.
Yeah, and so, now, let me say this, two things. The views and opinions of this station views and opinions of this discussion on the show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Praise 95. And the second thing I would say is, I am not stating an endorsement of either one of the candidates or either one of the parties. So, this discussion is not meaning if y'all didn't vote for this candidate, then y'all were bad, and if y'all voted for this candidate, y'all good. I mean, that's not what we're saying at all. But we are saying the power of our vote, the use of our vote, the ideology of our country, how it fits in our biblical role and responsibility are all topics but are up for grab every single time we have an election.
Yeah. I think that I think the response. Here's the thing. You know, everybody's all distraught and all this and all that. You know what I'm saying? Because he did run a fear campaign, but I just think a lot of the response was very, very, especially on Saints' behalf. I was just like, it's not that serious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You act like he gonna put you in chains tomorrow. Like they gonna come in and put everybody back in slavery tomorrow.
But here's the thing. I do think that if I were some of my Hispanic and Mexican folks who've been in this country for a lot of years, I mean, they have fear. I mean, their kids.
And I understand that.
Because this wasn't rhetoric that happened at 10 o'clock news and was reported overseas. This was.
I understand.
Yeah, you know, and so if I were Mexican, or if he exchanged what he said about me, what he said about them, and said that about blacks, then
I would look at the validity of what he's saying and if he could do it or not. You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
I think that, nobody thought Hitler could do what he could do either. But nobody thought Kim Jong-un would do what he would do. I mean, I think you always have that. I think if you lived through the 80s, when, and you look at Maslow, Reagan went to the top of the Maslow chart. And white evangelicals loved it. Conservatives loved it. And then everything at the bottom of that chart, it was like an avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, and President Obama went to the bottom of that chart.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody at the top
Loved it.
hated it.
They hated it.
Yeah, he went to the bottom of the chart. He actually tried to go to the middle of the chart, but I think
We're going to have to discuss that chart a little more on the next one.
Yeah. If he had his way, then I think he would have strengthened the bottom of the chart a whole lot more.
I will say, from the reaction, I think the fruits of what he was sowing is coming too, because we've seen. I mean, we've already seen, even before, race-related issues. But I'm talking about race-related issues specifically catering to this. I've seen people getting pulled out their cars because Trump supporters are getting stomped. I've seen an elementary school of white lunchroom kids shouting "Build a wall" and all the Mexicans in the lunchroom crying. And that's ridiculous. Right. So the reaction, I'm seeing some of the poison, the fruit from the poisonous tree that he sowed is beginning to reap, and I think that's a bad thing. That's a terrible thing. I'm talking about President Trump. Yeah,
President-elect.
President. I think that that's a terrible thing, and I think I don't know if he wants to or what's going to happen, but he's going to have to subside that mentality, especially since he just used it as a running tool to win the presidency. You know what I'm saying?
Well, see, I think that he has I think that his answer is, but I won. And I think he is a win at all costs. But
there are repercussions to that.
I think that the only repercussion, the only bad thing in life is his own words. The only bad thing in life is losing. And so let's suppose you got into a war with Russia and the whole country was demolished and Russia was demolished and we had nuclear fumes floating all over the air and we won the war and destroyed the country. He would say, this was great.
And that's why it won't be another 8 term for him. I don't believe it's gonna be 8 years for him. Well, I think I think the people see what their stubbornness has brought upon, because in states like Florida, where she lost by 80,000, there was 200,000 to Johnson, a third party, which would have been more than enough, or if we even say half, went to Hill. She'd have won Florida. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, and not saying that she's a better candidate, but I would say, if you were one of those that believed that he's not even fit to run the country, I mean, you had more of a choice. But I think there was a lot of stuff people was like, I don't like neither one, so I'm not going to vote. Now look what we got. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I think for the next election, I mean, he's out of here.
I would say if you market apathy, you know, then you get people who just like that's just what has happened. What Satan has done with the church. He's constantly talked about the church in ways that made people say, "I ain't even going."
Mm-hmm. And look at them.
And
you know,
not only look at them, but they are part of our society. So our society suffers greatly because of that. I think not knowing how to react. Like rather than go to the house,
yeah,
you gonna go pull somebody out of their car and beat on them because they voted for.
Yeah, I think that's stupid.
I mean, you know, I believe in the democratic process, and I think we always got to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
real quick, Maryland, first state that says we're not going to go off the electorates, and if we want to cast it for the popular vote, that's what we're going to do. And they said that they're going to be the first state to give all their electorals to whoever they want to, whoever the popular vote is. They have the option. There's nothing in the Constitution that mandates.
right, yeah, states are zone republic.
How much hope for that is that somebody like a Pennsylvania will do that? Because if Pennsylvania, Iowa do it, then he's not and they don't cast their votes to December 19th.
Ohio, Florida.
No, the
you're talking about the
electoral college.
Yeah,
And that's what's happening. The petition and there's appealing to the electoral college to cast their votes different than their states' winnings.
Yeah, I think that they